When he picked up his suitcase and walked out that door, I couldn't believe it. After everything we'd been through, everything we'd faced to stay together, seeing Logan leave broke me in a way I never imagined. The house fell silent. His scent still lingered on the sheets. The promise to never leave you alone still echoed in my mind. But the truth is, sometimes love isn't enough. Everything was going well. We were happy, living in that farmhouse that seemed tailor-made for the two of us. The mornings were peaceful, filled with comfortable silence, and glances exchanged between cups of coffee. The nights were cozy, enveloped in the distant sound of crickets and the warmth of our bodies lying side by side. The simple routine, the everyday gestures, the spontaneous smiles, everything seemed to flow with a naturalness that made me truly believe that we had finally found our place in the world. Gradually, Logan began to feel the need to go out more. He started calling me frequently to go to bars, events, parties, and so far so good. I agreed, we went out, had fun, laughed like two teenagers who could finally live in peace. It was nice to see that sparkle in his eyes, that desire to enjoy the freedom we didn't have before. But over time, Logan started wanting more than just going out. He started wanting to show us off in public. Sometimes he would hold my hand in the middle of the street, or try to kiss me in a crowded place. And I didn't feel comfortable with that. In my mind, there was no need for so much exposure. I thought our love was enough in silence, without curious glances, without judgment. So sometimes I would just pull my hand away, discreetly move away when he leaned in to kiss me, and say in a restrained whisper, "No, love, not here." And even if he smiled or pretended not to notice, I could feel it. I could see it in his eyes, in the way the conversation changed, that my reactions upset him. It was as if, little by little, the freedom he had waited so long for was being denied him by me. Until, on one of these outings, we were at a bar. It was a cozy place, with low lighting and background music, the kind that invites conversation. We sat at a table further away, and everything seemed normal, until I noticed a guy a few tables away, staring at me insistently. It wasn't a discreet look. It was direct, curious, maybe even interested, but I didn't pay any attention. I was with Logan, I was happy, and my heart already belonged to someone else. Logan noticed too. He glanced over, narrowed his eyes a little, and said with a slightly suspicious tone, "Why won't that guy stop looking at you?" I tried to play it down. "I don't know, honey. I've never seen him before, I swear." But that bothered Logan in a way I didn't expect. He looked again, irritated, and muttered, "I feel like going over there and giving that guy a piece of my mind." I was firm. "No, honey, let it go. It's not worth it." He looked at me, visibly upset, and blurted out, "Then give me a kiss. Maybe that'll make him stop looking." I turned to him, a little embarrassed by the situation, and replied, "Honey, why would you do that? That's so childish." And that's when everything went wrong. Logan abruptly walked away from the table, looking hurt, and said loudly enough for a few people to hear, "Oh, so I'm childish? Stay with him then." And he left the bar. I was paralyzed for a second. The lighthearted mood of the night turned into a knot in my stomach. I hurriedly asked for the check and rushed out, but Logan was already gone. I got a ride and went straight home, hoping I could still work things out calmly. But when I got there, he already had his suitcase on the bed, hurriedly grabbing some clothes. His gaze was painful, but also determined. He didn't even give me time to say much. He just looked at me and said dryly, "I'm leaving. You don't need someone childish by your side." I approached him, confused, my heart racing. "Logan, please. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you." He stopped, took a deep breath, and said in a bitter, resigned tone, "The day you make up your mind and accept us for who we really are, come find me. But as long as you want to hide, don't call me." And he left. The door closed with a sharp sound that echoed inside me, as if at that moment the silence had screamed everything I had never been able to say. I was speechless. The door had closed, but the impact still reverberated inside me like a silent thunderclap. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the empty space Logan had just left. The suitcase, the absence of his scent in the air, the silence of the house savory things screamed how much I already missed him. I tried to sleep that night, but sleep simply wouldn't come. The pillow felt harder, the room colder, and time frozen. Every time I closed my eyes, I relived the scene at the bar, the words spoken, the hurt in his eyes. I picked up my phone and called. Once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. I sent messages. Long ones, short ones, desperate ones. No response, no sign. The next day was silent torture. I tried to focus on work, opened my laptop, answered a few emails, but the words jumbled together on the screen. My head was elsewhere. Everything made me think of him. A glass left in the sink, the coffee we used to drink together, the sound of birds outside the window, even the silence seemed to scream his name. It was as if Logan was everywhere, even though he was gone. As if the whole house had been imbued with his presence and now, without him, everything had lost some of its meaning. The days dragged on, and as much as I wanted to change, to come out to the world, something inside me simply paralyzed me. Fear. Fear dominated me. I knew that with Logan, life would be different, that we could face dirty looks, judgments, maybe even prejudice from people close to us. And just thinking about it made my chest tighten. It terrified me. Even so, I couldn't stay away from him completely. I sent him messages, sometimes a simple good morning, other times a good night. I miss you. Some days, he would respond with a few words, an emoji, or you too. Other days, silence was all I got, and it hurt more than any harsh response. Until, late one afternoon, my phone rang. It was my son. I answered with a tired voice, and he immediately asked, "Hi, Dad. Is everything okay? You haven't called me in days. What's going on?" I took a deep breath and told him. I told him about what happened with Logan, about how hard it was for me to deal with everything, about how fear was still holding me back. He was silent for a few seconds, and then spoke with a maturity that moved me. "Dad, I understand that this is difficult for you, but if you love Logan, you have to try harder. It's not just for him, it's for you too." I tried to argue. "Son, I'm trying. I swear. But I just can't get my head around it. I grew up differently, with a different upbringing, a different mindset. It's like something inside me is blocking it." And then he said, firmly but lovingly, "Dad, have you thought about getting some psychological help? Maybe therapy could help you understand all this better." I was silent for a moment. I had never considered that possibility. But at that moment, those words made sense. They gave me direction. I replied sincerely, "Son, to be honest, I hadn't thought about it, but I think it's a good idea." That same night, I went online, searched for names, read reviews, sent messages, and the next day, I booked my first session. I started therapy. And for the first time, in a long time, I felt that maybe I was finally taking the first step in the right direction. The first few therapy sessions were difficult. Sitting there, face to face with a stranger, and letting out all my fears, guilt, and the barriers I had been carrying around with me forever. It wasn't easy, but little by little, something started to change. The psychologist listened to me without judgment. She asked me questions I had never asked myself. "What exactly are you afraid of? Why does showing who you are scare you so much?" And little by little, I began to understand that the problem wasn't just my fear of the world, it was the way I saw myself, the way I judged myself. The shame that, without realizing it, I had carried for years. We worked hard on this, on self-acceptance, on recognizing that loving someone like Logan wasn't a mistake, wasn't a sin, wasn't a weakness. It was simply love, and that I no longer needed to hide from him or from myself. I discovered that my biggest struggle wasn't against other people's prejudice. It was against what I had learned to feel about myself. And overcoming that took courage. The courage to look at my history and embrace everything I am, including the parts I spent my life trying to deny. And the more I allowed myself to dive into these issues, the more Logan returned to the center of everything. The memories of him, the moments at the country house, the gestures of affection, the patience he had with me, even when I didn't know how to name what I was feeling. And above all, The look in his eyes the last time we saw each other, full of pain, but also full of love. I kept sending messages from time to time without expecting a reply. Sometimes he read them, sometimes he didn't, but I wasn't writing to get a response. I was writing to show that I hadn't given up, that I was moving forward, that I was trying. And then one night, coming home from another session, something inside me changed. I walked into my house, looked at myself in the mirror, and thought, "You've always been afraid of losing everything. But what if, because of that fear, you're losing what really matters?" And it was on a random night, coming home from another session, that something inside me changed. I walked into the house, looked at myself in the mirror, and realized I was no longer the same man who let Logan go. I sat down on the couch, took a deep breath, and opened the conversation with him. I didn't want to send another generic message, or a simple, "I miss you." For the first time, I wanted to be completely honest. No masks, no defenses. I wrote slowly, with an open heart, "Logan, forgive me for making you feel alone when all you wanted was to love me in peace. It took me a while, but today I can see everything with new eyes. I understand now how hard you fought for us, while I was still fighting myself. But I'm changing. I'm learning to accept myself, to respect myself, to allow myself to live this love without fear. You didn't deserve my silence, my cowardice, my distance. If there's still room in your heart, I'd really like to try again, but this time, completely, without hiding." I sent it. My heart was racing. My hands were shaking, but for the first time, I was at peace with myself. Logan read the message. I saw that he had viewed it, but he didn't reply. I spent the whole night with my phone in my hand, waiting for any notification, any reaction, but the silence persisted, and as much as it hurt, I knew he had the right to process everything in his own time. The next day was Saturday. The sky was cloudy, and the house was plunged into almost complete silence. I stayed in bed until late, wrapped in the sheets, trying not to get my hopes up, but unable to think of anything else but him. That's when I heard the doorknob turn. The bedroom door opened slowly, and for a second, I thought I was dreaming. But no, when I opened my eyes, he was there. Logan. Beautiful as ever, with that intense look I knew so well. I was paralyzed. "Love, you came back?" I whispered, my voice breaking, and tears began to flow without me being able to hold them back. He walked over to me without saying a word. He sat down on the edge of the bed and leaned over slightly, placing one hand on my face. His touch was warm, firm, and full of tenderness. He looked me in the eyes with that calmness that only he had, and said softly, "It's okay. I missed you too. But we needed this time." And then, without another word, we kissed. A calm, long kiss, filled with everything that had been left unsaid during those months. It wasn't just desire. It was reunion, forgiveness, love. He lay down beside me, pulling the blanket slowly, as if he knew every corner of that space. And when he wrapped his arms around me, I knew. I knew that was where I belonged. There, in the quiet silence of the room, in the warmth of his chest, was where I wanted to be. And for the first time, with my whole heart, I thought with conviction, it didn't matter what others would think or say anymore. I wanted Logan, and I would fight against whatever it took for us to be okay, together. The morning passed slowly, as if time had decided to give us a break. We stayed there, lying down, in silence, just breathing together. He caressed my chest with his fingertips, and I felt every touch as if my body was relearning how to live. After a while, we got up. Breakfast was simple toast, fruit, 2 glasses of juice, but there was something sacred about that moment. Logan talked about little things, as if he had never left. And I listened to every word as if I were hearing a song I had missed for a long time. It was as if we were rebuilding everything, brick by brick, only now with more truth, more clarity, more presence. Throughout that week, we resumed our routine. He brought back the things he had taken. He spread his books around the house again, took his place in the closet, wore that old sweatshirt I loved. But more than that, he took up space inside me again. Space that had always been his, even during the silence. We started talking about the future. No rush, no pressure, just honesty. We talked about living there permanently, about bringing in some new furniture, about having my son over more often now without hiding anything. Logan even suggested that we do a little remodeling in the guest room so that the house would always be ready to welcome those we love. I realized that this time, it wasn't an escape or a hiding place anymore. It was a home. Our home. And every day, that certainty grew inside me. I didn't need to hide anymore. Not from myself, not from him, and not from the world. Because the love we had built, even with all the ups and downs, was too strong to live in the shadows. It was just another weekend. We went out for drinks, like so many other times. But that night was different. Maybe it was the light-hearted mood, the easy smiles, or the way Logan held my hand without making me feel uncomfortable. We were at peace. Together. For real. We laughed, toasted, talked about everything and nothing. The bar was crowded, but I didn't care. His presence by my side made everything seem lighter. At one point, I leaned over and said, "Honey, I'm going to the bathroom. I'll be right back." He smiled, touched my leg, and replied, "Go ahead. I'll be here waiting for you." I went, and when I came back, I saw Logan still sitting at the bar, but now talking to a guy I had never seen before. I approached slowly, watching from a distance, trying to understand. The guy seemed nice, but a little too interested. Then, as I got closer, Logan turned slightly toward him and said, in that calm, firm tone that only he has, "This is David, my boyfriend." At that moment, everything became clear to me. That simple, spontaneous moment carried enormous meaning. It was him, coming out to me, naturally, proudly, without having to hide anything from anyone. I felt my heart beat faster. I moved closer, touched the back of his neck affectionately, and without thinking twice, kissed him. A kiss full of everything I had learned, faced, and overcome. A public kiss. Free. Ours. After we separated, I looked into his eyes and asked with a smile, "Is everything okay, love?" He smiled back at me with that look that always melted my heart and replied, "Everything's fine, gorgeous." The other guy, a little embarrassed, apologized and walked away. We were left alone, smiling like teenagers in love. Logan looked at me for a few seconds, silently, and then asked sweetly, "How do you feel?" I took a deep breath. The bar was still crowded, the music was playing, but inside me there was a pleasant silence, a relief, a certainty. "I feel good," I replied. "I feel free." He smiled broadly, his eyes slightly misty, and said firmly, "I'm glad to hear that. I love you." And I, without hesitation, with an open heart and a light heart, replied, "I love you too." And in that moment, I knew it was no longer about the past, nor about fear. It was about being there, with him, whole, and finally, free to love. And in the end, that's what matters. To live, to love, and to have the courage to show love to those who really matter. Today, I feel free. And I'm not just talking about the freedom to walk hand in hand in public or kiss without fear. I'm talking about inner freedom, no longer carrying shame, guilt, or the feeling that I'm betraying who I am. I had to go through some bad days. I had to lose myself a little to truly find myself. I had to see Logan leave to understand how much he had always been my home. And now that everything is in place, I realize that it doesn't matter what the world thinks, or says, or expects of me. Because, in the end, it's just him and me. And that is more than enough. And so, we are moving on with our lives. Without haste, without fear, just living, day after day, with love, respect, and the certainty that we chose each other. I sincerely hope you enjoyed following this chapter of our story. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a like, and of course, parts 1 and 2 are in the comments if you missed them or want to revisit them. With much love and affection, David and Logan.